Good Monday afternoon to you, 4 o'clock time for Sports4CLE. Hope you had a good weekend. Our Cleveland Browns definitely did not. Browns limited Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill to 110 yards receiving, 1 touchdown. That's the good news. The bad news is the Dolphins ran for 195 and 2 scores. They threw for a total of 296 and 3 touchdowns. And as we see here, Tua Tagovailoa and Thomas Morstead, he is the punter for the Dolphins, who you didn't see yesterday because they did not have to punt the entire game. That is what the 0 stands for. 0 punts by the Miami Dolphins facing the Browns yesterday. Myles Garrett was asked, were the Browns defense surprised at all by anything that the Dolphins did?
They are who we thought they were, so I don't think they're better than what we expected. We just I guess the motions and a lot of the movements that they were doing really in real time it's a little bit different pace than we were expecting, and especially with all the threats that they have, it really just kept us a little slower, getting to where we needed to be and executing.
And did the sun or heat or anything like that affect you guys over on that side of the field?
No, it wasn't a factor. It really was just all what they were doing. Hats off to them.
With that, let's welcome in Scott Petrick, Browns beat reporter for the Elyria Chronicle Telegram, as well as BrownZone.com. And Scott, it's the second. You had the Ravens loss where you shut down Lamar, you shut down Mark Andrews, and you still got beat. Now you shut down Tyreek Hill, you shut down. 110 yards, that's significantly less than they had been putting up, but everybody else beat you.
Yeah, I think the plan was probably fine, right? You want to take away Tyreek Hill, you want to limit what Jalen Waddle does, but then you need all 11 guys out there to play really well defensively, because you can't then let, Rasheed or Mostert and Wilson go off in the running game. You can't let the tight end get you. You can't let the third receiver get you for a touchdown. Everybody, the fullback, right, had a big day. So, I get putting the focus on stopping Hill and Waddle, and that makes sense. But it's got to be more well-rounded than that. So I don't think the Browns can really take any solace in that, especially when the Dolphins said, hey, we're going to run the ball, and the Browns had no answers for that at all.
Is that the most concerning thing that you saw? The biggest takeaway from it was that, again, you thought maybe the run game was fixed a little bit. It still had the same problems.
Yeah, there's so much to be so many issues to address, but for me, the biggest one was I thought the defense may have figured some things out with those back-to-back games against the Ravens and the Bengals, right? They held the Ravens to 23 points. 10 of those came off, kind of field position. There's a turnover. There's a long punt return. So the defense played well. Then it played really well against the Bengals. You have the bye week. You're thinking, okay, they're going to build on this. They may have even turned a corner defensively. And then this happens, and it brings back all the issues that we saw from early in the season. Most of the issues, especially the run defense, right? They gave up 200 against the Falcons, 200 against the Chargers, almost 200 against the Dolphins. So obviously that huge issue has not been fixed.
Well, we mentioned defense looks like it's headed in the right direction. So Kevin Stefanski, and rightly so, was asked about trying to fix those multiple issues, and you can tell Kevin Stefanski's trying to figure it out as well.
We have to play better. We got to play better offense, defense, special teams. Again, when you go down, you get the result that you got. Nothing's good enough. It's just the truth. So are people going to be critical of that? Yeah, they should be. That's what being a fan is. That's what we're trying to be, self-critical, because we have to play better. We have to coach better. We understand that.
Scott, are we overvaluing the players? Because you look at the individual pieces, Myles Garrett, Jadeveon Clowney, JOK didn't play, but you have Denzel Ward. There are guys that you think are good players who have long-term deals. Are we overvaluing the individual pieces of this?
Yeah, it's an interesting thought. First of all, I think that was one of the most honest answers Kevin Stefanski gives, right? That kind of loss makes people question everything. And it should, especially because it's not the first time the Browns have lost a game like that this year. And then to your question, Dave, I think maybe we've overvalued some players. I don't think Miles is among them. I don't think Denzel Ward's among them or Greg Newsome. But, maybe your safeties, right? John Johnson III probably hasn't lived up to the contract he signed 2 years ago. Grant Delpit hasn't lived up to being a second-round pick. Jordan Elliott, there were such high hopes for him at D-tackle this year, a former third-round pick. He didn't start the second half. He was replaced by undrafted rookie Roger Perry because they were looking for answers on that defensive line. So, and then linebacker, Jacob Phillips wasn't who they needed him to be before he got hurt. I think JOK's been up and down this year. So there's certainly pieces, a lot of young pieces that just haven't been what the Browns thought they would be.
All right, let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason for the first of what will be many occasions today.
We need to fire Joe Woods now, not tomorrow, not next year, now. This is unacceptable. This is unacceptable. And this is so disappointing that we have to say this once again. That's all I got to say.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Something's got to change with the defense. I don't know what it is. You can't get rid of all 20 some odd players.
Right. I mean, Joe Woods is obviously the guy who's getting the most criticism. And if this had come before the bye week, maybe there would be a change. I certainly don't expect a change now after the bye. I'm not a big just fire a guy to fire a guy. I don't know. I don't think that has long-term impact. It might have a short-term effect. We saw a little bit from the Colts, with Jeff Saturday yesterday. But, Kevin Stefanski said we all need to coach better. It's not just Joe Woods. I asked John Johnson III. He talked about the lack of adjustments on defense. Is that a coach or a player thing? And he said it's both of us, but, we got to execute the game plan. I'm not saying Joe Woods is the right guy, and I'm not saying he's perfect. But I think it goes beyond that. And to go back to your previous question about overvaluing the talent, some of it is personnel. So you got a personnel issue, you have a coaching issue, and you have execution issues. And these are all big deals. And if you have all three of them, that's why it makes it so hard to solve the problems and why the Browns continue to not be what we thought they would be.
Do you think they're asking guys to do things that aren't their strengths? So in other words, is there a mismatch with scheme and what guys do well, or are we looking?
I don't think so. I mean, I went back and tried to watch that run defense, and to me it looked like a bunch of guys who couldn't get off blocks. And I don't know if it matters what scheme it is if you can't beat the one-on-one blocks, right? It's not always double teams or triple teams. Myles Garrett gets double teamed when he rushes the passer all the time. But I'm talking like a run play, can your D-tackle hold up? And a lot of times it's one guy, one offensive lineman controlling that defensive lineman. It's one guard controlling the linebacker, or the linebacker's taking the wrong, the wrong angle, filling the wrong gap. So I'm not saying the scheme's perfect by any stretch, but yesterday to me felt like the players just not being good enough and not winning enough one-on-one battle.
Scott Petrick, Browns beat reporter for the Elyria Chronicle-Telegram. You can also check him out online, brownzone.com. He and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. We head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery, partners in education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns with Scott Petrak, Browns beat reporter from the Elyria Chronicle-Telegram as well as brownzone.com. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hi, Dave. Just watching the end of the Browns game. Howard from Marin County. The Browns are absolutely pitiful. They are an awful team. So many things need to change. What can I say? They're going to be 3-8 when Deshaun comes back. The Browns are a bad team. Thanks, Dave.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Scott, after a performance like that, you can't argue that you are what your record says you are at this point.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I mean, we can nitpick, we can point to, hey, they could have won this game, they could have won that game. You know, they played well against the Bengals, but you're right, they're 3-6, and they've had two really bad, two terrible games where they're not even competitive, and then lost a bunch of close games, which, that's how the NFL is. So I can't argue with any of that. I do feel like they should be better because I think there is still talent here. But until it shows up consistently, and they haven't won 2 games in a row all year. So it's awful hard to paint a sunny picture of this team.
Yeah, the other thing is they know they're not built to play from behind with Jacoby Brissett at the quarterback. So when they fell behind yesterday early, it was like, ooh, this is going really, really bad, and it continued to.
Yeah, and, most of the focus for me is on the defense because, the defense couldn't stop them at all yesterday. But offensively, they move the ball, they score on that first possession, and then they have Nick Chubb fumbles, which he never does, but that's a huge play in the game, right? It takes away a potential scoring drive. They're like on the 30-yard line of Miami. And then they get a 3rd and 1. Hunt loses 2 yards. 4th and 3. DPJ can't hang on to a quick slant route. So they had chances, but when those chances didn't happen, they couldn't capitalize on those. You felt like it was going to get away from them because Miami is so high-powered. The Browns' defense was struggling so badly, so it went from 10-7 to 24-7, like in the blink of an eye, and then the Browns were done. But when you look back, the run game just wasn't what it normally is. I thought the offensive line struggled run blocking, struggled pass protection. Part of that's due to injuries. But the Browns had 30 yards in the first half running the ball, and they had 14 carries. So the attempts were there, but the success rate was not.
Yeah, and you know what? You got to credit. At some point in time, you got to give the Miami Dolphins credit. Their defense was a lot better than I thought it would be. But if you can't run and you can't pass, you're kind of gonna struggle. There's breaking news. All right, this is interesting. Pro Football Focus grades from yesterday for the defense. And you look at it, Grant Delpit graded out the highest. Myles Garrett up there. Denzel Ward pretty good. A.J. Green pretty good. Once you get out of the green, these are not good grades. And orange, even though it's the color of the helmet, that's bad. Red is really bad. So the bottom line is when you look at the defensive grades from Pro Football Focus, Scott, if this were a report card, I got to say the Browns would be repeating the Miami Dolphins portion of it.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody would want to see that again. But, yeah, you're right. I mean, Myles, they have him graded okay, but he didn't have any impact. There were a couple of pressures. I know he got doubled a bunch, which is going to happen, which always happens with him. But it's not like he affected the game. Delpit had the one tackle on 4th and 1, but I thought the linebacker, I can't even pronounce his name, number 51, Jordan Kunicic or whatever, I thought it was really the play that he made the play. It wasn't Delpit. They needed Delpit to make tackles because nobody else was making them. So, yeah, there just wasn't a whole lot of highlights. I thought Ward played pretty well coming back after missing 3 games. Maybe that's a bright spot. But yeah, the defense was just bad. I mean, from start to finish, front to back, it was bad.
So the Browns, this from Jake Trotter, they now rank 31st in defensive expected points against. Only the Lions are worse in the entire league in defensive EPA. And that, in a nutshell, will tell you why you're sitting at 3-6.
Yeah, I mean, EPA, that's a fancy stat, but they're bad in everything, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
When you're not stopping the team, when you're not stopping the opponent enough, it makes it really hard. And I think what drives home that statistic is the Browns have been good offensively, right? I mean, outside of yesterday, when they only scored 17 and there were other factors, they've been good. They were like 5th or 7th in the league entering the Dolphins game offensively, points per game. So that hasn't been the issue, even though you have a backup quarterback playing. It's a lot about the defense. It's a lot about the special teams. And we've talked about this, Dave, that the plan was supposed to be run the ball, play good defense, play good special teams, and figure out a way to win. Well, it's now they're looking for the offense to carry the rest of the team, and it's not built to do that with Jacoby Brissett at quarterback.
Yeah, and again, unless that defense gets fixed, nothing is going to change. It just won't.
Right. No, you're right. Now, I do think there's some sentiment that if you have Deshaun Watson or an elite quarterback, and Deshaun Watson could be that changes everything, right? It gives you a chance to be explosive. You stay on the field longer. It probably takes some pressure off that defense. But on an individual play basis, Deshaun Watson is not helping Jordan Elliott or Taven Bryan get off blocks and make tackles. So he might help things, and I think from a kind of grand plan standpoint, he does. But I don't know if he affects things enough to solve all the problems that keep cropping up.
Yeah, that is very fair. All right, this is from your mailbag. The Browns bet heavily on their ability to develop players. How do you think they're doing in that?
Yeah, I think it's a sound strategy, right? Because it's cheaper through the draft. You develop your guys. I mean, it makes sense. But when those guys don't develop like you want them to, or in the timely fashion that you need them to, then you struggle. And we saw it. And I'm trying not to kill Jordan Elliott, but he keeps coming to mind, right? Jordan Elliott, Jacob Phillips, Anthony Schwartz, certainly at receiver. Grant Delpit, I think, has been playing better lately after a rough start, but you could include him in that discussion. There's guys out there that the Browns were counting on playing huge snaps for them that haven't lived up to what the Browns expected out of them. And when that happens, you have games like you did yesterday. You have the results like you did yesterday. And I thought it was interesting, and I think it's a contrast that drove it home. Miami had, they have Jalen Phillips and Melvin Ingram at the end, and then they go and trade for Bradley Chubb. So now they have a third guy to rush the passer. And it feels like the Browns just don't have that depth outside of corner and maybe O-line, right? It doesn't feel like that at the end. It doesn't feel like that at D-tackle. Certainly, linebacker, the depth's been tested. And if you're not willing or able to spend a bunch of money on veteran backups, then then the young guys better perform. And I think that's been an area of disappointment.
Yeah, it's been really uneven. And the areas where they have struggled, defensive tackle, and that's where it shows up, their inability to develop the guys that they liked and drafted. All right, we're going to head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason before we head to break.
Yeah, this is Tim from West Palm. I was talking about the Browns being too predictable, one-dimensional, running, throwing. It seemed how well the quarterback threw. It seemed like the defenders on the Miami Dolphins team looked like they already knew what he was going to do and were told when he was going to do it, and they were just knocking the ball out of everybody's hand. I think what the Browns need to do now is be unpredictable, and that would make them more of a dangerous team. And the special teams came out a little bit, but it seemed like once they figured out Ford could run the ball down their throats and make sure he didn't get it out of his hands. So it seemed like the coach of Miami Dolphins pretty much had the Browns already figured out. That's why the Browns have to go back to unpredictable, so many change-ups. The defense seemed to be doing a great job, but they couldn't stop the run. Maybe because Miami has such big people. I think it was just an off day for the Browns, and thank you for hearing my comments. Go Cleveland. Woo.
All right, as always, appreciate all of the voicemails. What about it? Do you think I can't argue with the fact that it looked like the Dolphins had a pretty good idea of what was coming after that first drop, really after the Nick Chubb fumble.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I thought Miami just played better. You know, they have some good guys on that D-line. Wilkins is a good player. I mentioned the D-ends that they have. And I thought the Browns' offensive line struggled. So it's hard for me to say Stefanski needs to be more unpredictable when, like we talked about, I thought the play calling's been pretty good overall this season. I think the offense has exceeded my expectations. Now, you know, when you get to late in the game and Brissett's trying to force the ball and it's one-on-one coverage and guys are making plays, yeah, it looks like they know where he's throwing it. But I think that's just, you know, what happens when you're down by that many points. But I get the frustration. I just don't think, you know, everybody wants the Browns to run it so many times that, you know, you can't be that unpredictable when you try to run the ball.
Scott Patrick and I are going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Other side of the break, we'll head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Also look at the Browns' chances of making the playoffs and their chances of having a top 5 pick. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
Maybe cliche, but there's no I in team. The only identity that matters is we. The collective effort to love thy neighbor is needed now more than ever. The responsibility behind pronouns such as I, me, and mine impact we, us, and ours. So understand that you make all the difference in the team. He, him, her, or she can't disturb our peace, since we control our destiny as student athletes. This is the power of pronouns.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns with Scott Petrick, Browns beat reporter from the Elyria Chronicle, Telegram, as well as brownzone.com. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Yeah, longtime Browns fan. Just saying, we have this wizard head coach that keeps scheming more and more pass plays, but we don't scheme any run plays, even though we have one of the top 4 running backs in the league. I mean, we have some great running backs. And the defense, what the heck is going on? We used to take away the ball. We have 2 takeaways all year. Something is really wrong with this coaching staff. Just saying, go Browns. Woo, woo.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Scott, we were just talking about the scheme and the run, and I get people's frustration, but I want to talk about the lack of takeaways. I think that's one of the things that has really, really been hurting this defense.
Yeah, that's a great point, and I'm glad that caller brought it up. That changes games, right? Takeaways change games. And when the Browns have gotten a couple, it makes a difference, right? Against Cincinnati, they got 2 early, and it made a difference. It changes the number of possessions you have, changes momentum. And he's right. He's not right about 2. The Browns have 8 this year. But 8 in 9 games isn't enough.
Right.
It's just not. So, yeah, I think that when we look at this defense as a whole, that's one of the big issues. Now, I don't know if that's coaching. That feels more like players need to make plays to me, but something needs to change.
Yeah, you know, there's the stat, I believe it's 78% of the time the team that wins the turnover battle wins the game. This is also interesting and concerning all in one. So this is from Jake Trotter. Browns now have just a 4.5% chance to make the playoffs, according to ESPN's Football Power Index. There's also a 14% chance that Cleveland's draft pick lands in the top 5. And remember, that pick goes to the Houston Texans as part of the Deshaun Watson trade. So again, that's concerning. That gives you a reason not to go out and try to win as many games as you can, because you don't get that pick.
No, that's exactly right. And, it hurts you on a couple levels, right? Because you're going to need to fill holes, and you're not going to have that first-round pick. But then when that's the only thing, once you get to the offseason, you have free agency and the draft, and there's so much focus on the draft, and fans have to, live with whatever that pick's going to be, that's going to make it really difficult, and especially if Deshaun Watson struggles at all when he comes back, right? Because, if he becomes a franchise quarterback, a top 5 player, then you can deal with giving up draft picks. But if he struggles and this team misses the playoffs and they give up a top whatever pick, it's going to be a tough offseason for the Browns.
Yeah, without question. Along those lines, let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey, this is Cassius, the quintessential Cleveland Browns fan. Okay, here's what I have to say. When Deshaun Watson finally comes and plays, it'll make our offense much better, but our defense ain't going to be able to stop the run still. I'm amazed the way they put this team together. They're not worried about the defensive tackles. That's like saying, I'm gonna wash my face, but I'm not going to brush my teeth. If you got to take care of everything as best you can't overlook one thing unless it becomes a downfall. And that's what the Cleveland Browns did. I'm not impressed with Kevin Stefanski. I'm really not. He's going to be here the rest of the year, but I hope even when Deshaun Watson comes back, that it exposes that we need a new coach. I'm not impressed with him anymore. I'm truly not. Regardless, I'm a Cleveland Browns fan for life, no matter what. Our future looks good. Our present don't. Go Browns.
As always, appreciate Cassius and all of the voicemails. So the thing that pops into my head here as this season is going along, Scott, are the final 6 games with Deshaun Watson becoming more and more important for Kevin Stefanski? Just relative to, you got to show, all right, here's your quarterback. Show us what you can do.
I think that's a fair question to ask, certainly, just given the Haslam's history. And, I don't get any sense that Kevin Stefanski's in trouble. But, if you finish out of the playoffs for 2 straight years and there's high hopes, certainly that begins to be a question. And I know the belief with the Browns is that Deshaun Watson's going to make a huge difference. And it's the first time Kevin Stefanski will have had an elite quarterback, at least with this time with the Browns. And it better make a difference. Now, maybe it's unrealistic to expect Watson to make a huge difference given the fact that he will have gone 700 days between regular season games. So I kind of look at it like if the Browns offense is a lot better, which, it's been good. But if it's significantly better or noticeably better with Watson, you can do more stuff, RPOs, quarterback runs, those kinds of things. Then I think it gives the organization and the Haslams, you go, okay, we got a quarterback. Kevin Stefanski's the right guy with this quarterback. If it's 6 games of struggles, whether or not we should expect those struggles, then I think there's more doubts involved. And then, I do think that at least affects the thinking to someone.
Yeah, I would agree with you wholeheartedly. I can't see how he would be on the hot seat now. But again, if it doesn't look significantly better, then I think you're right. There's some things going, all right, what are we doing here? So Deshaun Watson can now practice and be coached starting tomorrow, or today rather, with the Browns. Let's Kevin Stefanski on the plan for Deshaun Watson coming back and practicing.
We as coaches can be out there with him now and work with him, which we haven't been able to do. So we'll have a plan for him to start getting ready. But to your point, Jacoby is the number one priority in getting him ready to play in this game. So whatever we do with Deshaun won't take away from Jacoby's preparation.
Could that be a morale boost for guys or no? Because they're pros and they always go about it the same way.
Yeah, I think everybody kind of understands the situation that we're in. The guys understand Deshaun and being a great teammate, he's going to get his work in. Jacoby's going to do the same. So I don't see it in that vein, but I just see it as the next step for Deshaun being able to practice.
And again, it's you're kind of fighting two different battles there, moving forward for the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I think that's the only way you can approach it. Like Stefanski said, you can't ignore Brissett. He's going to be the guy going up against Josh Allen and Tom Brady. So that has to be the number one priority. Having said that, it's like training camp, David. We talked about it. It's like parallel train tracks. And you have Jacoby on one and Deshaun Watson on the other. And I think what that means is you'll get maybe longer practices, maybe get an extra period where Watson, I don't know if he goes with the first team, but maybe he runs the game plan, right? If he can be with the scout team or the second team, but they run the plays that the Browns are going to run that weekend. I think when they go to individual drills, he'll be throwing the ball a lot to Amari Cooper and Donovan Peoples-Jones and David Njoku when he's healthy, because those are the guys he's going to be throwing to when he plays. So I would expect the Browns to put in extra work to get him ready, but like Stefanski said, not take away from Brissett's reps, because that wouldn't make sense to me.
No, it wouldn't make sense at all. I mean, if you're finding a way to try to hold on to any hope, they got to find a way to beat Josh Allen and Tom Brady. And on that, we're going to step aside and take a quick timeout. Scott Petrick and I will be back for one more segment, talking Browns here on Sports4CLE. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns with Scott Petrick from the Elyria Chronicle Telegram, as well as brownzone.com. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Dave, like all businesses or franchise in this country, they will succeed or not succeed because of the owners and leaders from the top. The Browns have the Haslam's. They might have the money, but they are clueless how to run a successful NFL franchise. The dirty word used in Cleveland is change, and many people state we, the Browns, have made too many changes, and this is a reason for our failure. But the real truth is the decisions that have been made in the past concerning the right management, coaches, and players have not been put together to create a team that is capable of playing consistent winning football on the field. You could have a lot of names that look good on paper, but in reality, do they have the right coaches who know how to motivate and lead a group of players to play winning football? And do they have enough of the right players who will mold together, use their skills, and generate and do whatever it takes to make a winning team? So the most important question is, do the Browns have anyone who can make the right decisions to make the correct changes to ever make this a successful NFL football team?
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Scott, if it was easy, or if it was a formula, or if it was a science, a lot of people could do it. Putting together a roster and putting together 53 men and having them live and work together and be successful, it's an art form.
Yeah, you're right about that. I mean, so much goes into it, right? The Browns have tried the football guy, they've tried the analytics guys, they tried a combination of the two. And who knows? Maybe stability is what's needed, continuity. That's usually my default setting. And this is the first time I think with the Browns that a coach would go through 3 full seasons under the Haslams. If Kevin Stefanski, as I assume, makes it to the end of the season. Although I think Hugh was only 2.5, but. So yeah, it's tough. It's really tough to do. The Haslams have said time and again, there's no manual. They didn't know what to expect. They've been learning on the fly. But I think the caller, his initial statement is right. It does start at the top. And you see that usually the best teams in the NFL are the best run organizations. And it starts at ownership. And the owners that are bad, their teams tend to struggle year in and year out.
And you know what? Again, so it doesn't sound like I'm crushing the ownership group. I think at their heart they really want to win. They just can't figure out how to do it.
Yeah, I have no doubt about that. I really do think they want to win. And a lot of that, and I'm not saying it's easy to hire a GM or easy to hire a coach. It's not. I mean, some teams figure it out, right? The Steelers seem to figure it out. The Ravens seem to figure it out, and that's why there's been such a discrepancy. But that's not easy to do, and finding the right quarterback isn't easy to do, right? We're all eyewitnesses to all of that, but that is their responsibility.
Yeah, agreed. All right, you and I kind of talked about right before the break. It's Josh Allen. Now his arm's a little sore, and he's thrown too many curveballs or whatever, his UCL injury. Then it's Tom Brady. Myles Garrett talked about facing those two in the next 2.
They've shown to be prolific, but they've also been stopped. I mean, game before last, I believe the Bills lost, and they did a great job with Josh Allen, getting him to get rid of the ball a little bit quicker, getting pressure in his face, and a lot of teams have been doing the same with Tom Brady. So, I mean, those guys are, like I said, are very talented. I mean, Tom's career speaks for itself, but they're in no way, shape, or form unbeatable, especially for us.
And that's the attitude they have to have, and this will be the 12 seconds of Sunshine and Roses portion of the show. If they're able to find a way to beat the Bills and the Buccaneers, you get to 5-6 with Deshaun Watson, and you feel a whole lot better than being 3-6 where you are right now.
Oh, there's no doubt. I mean, coming out of the bye, I thought they needed to go 2-1. So that's still on the table. I just figured it'd be easier to do beating Miami. I thought Miami was more winnable game than certainly Buffalo. Now, Buffalo's lost 2 in a row, but they also could have won both those games. They should have won yesterday. Allen's an MVP candidate. So it's not easy. I like Myles' attitude, right, that especially for us, they aren't unbeatable. And that's the attitude you have to have. And, yeah, the Jets beat them. Minnesota went into Buffalo and won. There's no reason to think the Browns couldn't do it, except they're coming off, one of their 2 worst games of the year, which makes it hard to wrap your head around that.
Yeah, and it's got to, there's a whole lot of things that got to get corrected in a really short time frame, without question. All right, this is concerning. Through 9 games, Browns have allowed over 5 yards a carry to 9 different running backs. Of those 9, only one of the running backs is a top 15 running back in the league in rush yards. That's Jeff Wilson, yesterday's big gainer. And he's 12th. I mean, I read that over like 3 or 4 times. That's telling you how bad the run defense is right now.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And I think the Browns philosophically are okay not having a dominant run defense because they figure rushing the passer and playing good pass defense in the secondary is more important. But having said that, they know you have to be at least decent against the run, and they haven't been. And we talked about earlier, that's been a huge problem starting in about week 4 in that second half against Atlanta. And it's cropped up too many times against the Chargers, against the Patriots, and then again yesterday against Miami. So they got to figure something out to just be okay. They don't have to be great, but they got to be okay, and they've been far from okay.
Yeah, all right. I'm going to let you, before I let you go, there's just something, and this is kind of an abstract question, just sitting back and not being as close to it, there just seems to be something that's a little bit off Do you sense with this team? I mean, do you sense that? And I know if you could put your finger on it, if Kevin Stefanski could put his finger on it, it'd be solved. Does it seem like there's just something that's not adding up?
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I kind of fought that notion for a while. The NFL's a funny league, and you play well one week and you don't the next. But to see the same issues crop up, and even different issues too, right? It's been the same thing recurring in the run defense, but then it's been other things, the communication breakdowns, and we can go down the line. That it does feel like something bigger than just a week in and week out thing. But I couldn't tell you what that is. Is it a lack of leadership at the highest, among some of the players? Maybe, but that's tough to pin down. I don't think guys are fighting in the locker room. But yeah, I would say that there's some intangible ingredient missing, and I just couldn't tell you what it is, though, Dave.
Yeah, I know. Again, if you could figure it out, it's not like we'd keep it a secret from everybody. We'd let them know, but something just doesn't. It's not adding up to the way it should, I guess. Scott Patrick, as always, thanks so much. Appreciate the time on a Monday. Thanks for the time and the insight, Scott.
Thanks, Dave.
Scott Petrak, Browns beat reporter from the Elyria Chronicle-Telegram, as well as BrownsZone.com. Check him out. Really good stuff, Browns coverage. We're going to step aside, take a quick break. We turn our attention to the Cavaliers. Chris Fedor joins us. Sports for CLE. He'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams. I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
Welcome back to Sports for CLE. We turn our attention to the Cavaliers. Wrapped up a trip out to California, came back home, played the Timberwolves yesterday. Donovan Mitchell, Jared Allen, Dean Wade all missed that game against the Wolves. Cavs fell behind, rallied but came up short. Fourth loss in a row. J.B. Bickerstaff on kind of what he has seen from the Cavs and where they stand after that four-game losing streak.
It's the NBA, and with the exception of tonight, we've had leads in the fourth quarter of all these games. So, we knew there was going to be a learning curve of how we finished games this year. So, this is nothing that, wasn't expected, and there's no reason to panic. Like, we got a good basketball team in that locker room, and, we stay healthy and have our team on the floor. We're going to win a bunch of games this year. So we'll focus on that, keep competing, keep playing together, and we'll be just fine.
Let's welcome in Chris Fedor, Cavs beat reporter from the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Chris, again, not ideal, but J.B. Bickerstaff makes some really valid points there about what's gone on in this four-game stretch.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to keep it in perspective. There's no doubt about it. And it's interesting, too. JB Bickerstaff has talked throughout the course of this season, every opportunity that he has gotten, about the growth that this team still needs to experience. Like, they don't have the same togetherness. They don't have the same experience as a team like Milwaukee or Boston. Like, from one standpoint, the Cavs are a relatively new team because they're trying to introduce an alpha ball dominant player in Donovan Mitchell, who's used to being Mr. Everything for the Utah Jazz. It just takes time. JB Bickerstaff has talked about when LeBron went to Miami and they formed the Heatles. They were 8-9 at one point of the season. If you think back to when LeBron came in 2014 and the Cavs formed their own big three with Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love, they were 19-20 at one point in the season. So these things take time. You didn't just snap your fingers and say, this is how it's going to be, and it's going to work out as what we envisioned when we made a trade for a megastar in somebody like Donovan Mitchell. And then on top of everything else, there are some circumstances surrounding what the Cavs have been able to do or not been able to do throughout the course of this year, with injuries, with travel, with the schedule. So it's been a little bit wonky at the beginning of the season. But I agree with JB from the standpoint of, it's not time to panic. You have to react. You have to respond. You have to have some level of concern about some of the things that you're seeing, especially late in the fourth quarter. But panic and overreact? Nah, I don't think so. This is a good basketball team, and they've proven that early on in this season.
Yeah, without question. This is kind of interesting as well. This is from More for You, Cleveland. And so 120 games allowed over that span. And, again, this is a pretty good defensive basketball team that, again, trying to figure out how everybody fits in. And that'll show up more on defense, correct?
Yeah, I think so. I also think that there are some realities that the Cavs are going to have to overcome when it comes to their defense. And one of those is the fact that they've got two non-traditional undersized guards. If you go back to the game against the Golden State Warriors Friday night, late in the game, when the Golden State Warriors needed to execute, when it was a possession-for-possession game, and they had to show their experience, and they had to go out and execute, what'd they do? They picked on Darius Garland. And I think teams are going to continue to pick on Darius, and I think they're going to continue to try and pick on Donovan Mitchell as well, because they're not going to try and test Jared Allen and Evan Mobley and Dean Wade if he's out there on the perimeter, or maybe even Isaac Okoro. There are weak points of this Cavs defense, just like the Phoenix Suns have weak points on their defense, and the Milwaukee Bucks and any other quality team that you want to bring up. There are weak points that can be exploited. The question is, like, how do the Cavs overcome those? And I think it's something that they're still trying to figure out. They believe that it can work with Darius and Donovan together in the backcourt because they have two all-defensive type players anchoring the defense, and Jared Allen and Evan Mobley. But when one of those guys isn't out there on the court, it becomes a little bit more difficult for the Cavs to defend at that high level that they're going to want to defend at. I would say the fact that they're still top 5 in defensive rating for the season with a non-traditional undersized backcourt speaks to some of the schemes that they've devised and just how good Jared Allen and Evan Mobley are when it comes to protecting.
Yeah, and the guys want to play defense. That's not always the case, but you can tell those guys do want to play defense. So let's talk a little bit about yesterday's game. Went into the fourth quarter down 20, and then they had a chance to win. Darius Garland, 27 of his 51 in the fourth quarter. What did you see from him, and how good of it is to see? Because he had been struggling a little bit. He wasn't healthy. He wasn't feeling great.
He went into that game, Dave, last night, averaging 16 points on 30% from three-point range. That's not Darius, right? So he was clearly in a shooting slump, and people close to him were like, hey, man, like, you're fine. You're fine. Don't worry about this. Don't beat yourself up. He was beating himself up over the way that he played late in the game against the Clippers, late in the game against the Kings, and then against the Golden State Warriors as well. So, you know, obviously he was in a little bit of a shooting funk, and he was dealing with a sickness, and he was dealing with injuries at the beginning of the season. So there were circumstances tied to the way that he was playing, the way that he was underperforming, if we want to put it that way. But I think you saw in the fourth quarter, not just what Darius is capable of, but when he's confident, when he's aggressive, when he's just forgetting about anything else that could be going on, he can be that kind of player who disrupts a defensive game plan, who helps a team offensively, who can create for himself and create for others as well. And that was one thing that you saw from Darius midway through the fourth quarter. Like, yeah, he had it cooking. He had it rolling. But he got Jetty Osman an open three-pointer. He got Lamar Stevens a cutting layup. He found other teammates for open shots as well. So it's finding that balance of when to go, get his aggressively, and also be the point guard that the Cavs need him to be the floor general that the Cavs need him to be. And the other thing that he's been struggling with, Dave, is he's never played with a guy like Donovan Mitchell, and Donovan Mitchell's never played with a guy like him. Darius is used to being the guy on offense. Donovan's used to being the guy on offense. They're used to being the closer for their respective teams, and now they're trying to ping pong off each other, play off each other in these closing moments, and it just hasn't been as smooth as either guy would want.
Well, take a listen to, and listen closely to what Garland says about his 51-point performance against Timberwolves.
I didn't get the outcome that I wanted, and the team feels the same way. The coaching staff feels the same way. The ball just went in more tonight than it did the other nights.
Was there a point where you felt like you had 50 in you?
No, I didn't even know I had 50 until I went back to the bench, for real. So, yeah, I didn't really know, to be honest with you.
Dad, nobody told you?
Nobody told me. Nobody, 50 ball watch, no nothing. Nobody told me. I mean, that's our team. Like, we don't care about how many points you score. We wanna win. That's the outcome that we want.
And Chris, that kind of goes to what you were talking about. I don't think Donovan Mitchell cares who the guy is late. I don't think Darius Garland cares who the guy is late. I don't think either of them care who leads the team in scoring. It's kind of nice to see young players like that. They want to win.
Yep. And that's the thing that stands out that makes this team special. You know, oftentimes when you do have these young guys that haven't proven it at the same level, like they're looking to show what they're capable of. They're looking to prove something to themselves and to the rest of the NBA. They're looking to get paid. They're looking to put up big stats. They're looking for shot opportunities and big roles and stuff like that. But this group is so special because there's not one bad guy in that locker room, and everybody is pulling on the rope in the same direction. It doesn't mean that they're always going to get it right. It doesn't mean that they're always going to win games, but they're going to be connected. They're going to be tied together. It doesn't matter who. There's a we over me approach, which is very, very rare for a young team like this when you're talking about big personalities and when you're talking about young guys who still have a lot to prove.
Chris Fedor, Cavs beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com, and I are going to take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we'll look at some NBA power rankings. We'll look ahead. What's ahead for the Cavs? Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Cavs with Chris Fedor, Cavs beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Let's take a look at the NBA power rankings according to NBA.com. Number one, they have the Celtics. That's a team the Cavs have beat twice. Bucks, Trailblazers, Nuggets, Jazz, Suns, Mavericks. They have the Cavs at number 8. Offensive rating, 115.5, third best. Defensive rating, we alluded to, 108.7, fourth best. And again, Chris, you pointed out, Darius Garland has missed some time. Donovan Mitchell has missed some time. And that's even more important because you want those guys to get used to playing next to each other.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing about it, right? Like, the only way that Darius and Donovan are going to figure out the late fourth quarter hierarchy, whatever it's going to end up being, what's best for the Cavs in those moments, is to go through it. And sometimes you learn through failure, right? Like, sometimes you learn through success and other times you learn through failure. And I think there's been enough failure, especially on the West Coast trip, where it was eye-opening to how they had to play, the approach that they needed to take. But again, these guys got to play together. They got to figure it out. And the only way that they're going to get better and they're going to experience the things that this team is going to experience, maybe come playoff time, is by going through the moments like we saw on the West Coast road trip, going through moments like we saw in overtime against the Boston Celtics, right? Going through moments that we saw late in the game against the Washington Wizards. All of those kinds of things that have happened throughout the course of this season so far, even though they can be frustrating and disappointing based on the outcome, they're all very, very beneficial to a team that hasn't been through those the same way that Milwaukee, Golden State, Phoenix, Boston, some of these other contenders have already.
Yeah, and the other thing to keep in mind, and you heard it from Darius Garland, these guys, they're all headed in the right direction. That will usually enable you to get where you need to go reasonably quickly. They have the Bucks coming up, 10-2 on the season. And again, is this an opportunity they look forward to? Okay, this is a team that's at a high level. Let's see what we need to do to be competitive, be right at them.
I talked to Kevin Love a little bit about this following the Golden State game on Friday night, Dave, and the thing that he said is he expects the Bucks to come out and show the Cavs that they aren't yet on their level. He expects the Bucks to come out with an intensity, a focus, a determination to say, hold on, upstart Cavs. Nuh-uh, not yet. The East still runs through us here. And the Bucks are really, really good. They're 10-2, and they haven't had their second or third most important player, depending on how you rank Chris Middleton versus Drew Holiday on the importance meter for the Bucks. So this is an opportunity, yes, for the Cavs to measure themselves against one of the elite teams in the Eastern Conference. They had 2 opportunities to do it against the Boston Celtics earlier this year, and they looked really, really good. They looked like they belonged. But Boston and Milwaukee, I think, are on different tiers. I think Milwaukee is clearly the best team in the Eastern Conference. And I'm really, really looking forward to seeing how the Cavs, if they're going to be close to full strength, stack up against this Milwaukee team led by Giannis, who is, a perennial MVP candidate who completely wrecks game plans on the offensive and defensive end.
Yeah, and the thing is, there's a little bit of a respect there that Kevin's talking about as well, because the Bucks see the talent and they want to make sure that that they deliver the proper message. All right, before I let you go, what are you looking for? What when you watch the next few games, what gives you, if you see some things, what will you be, all right, we're headed the way we want to be as a team with the Cavs?
I think the Cavs ceiling ultimately, Dave, is tied to 2 factors. One, can they be an elite defensive team? That's the foundation of this team. That's who they are. That's who they want to be. And can they become a better team than what we've seen in the last, let's say, 4 games during this losing skid that started on the West Coast? The other thing, and everybody knows this, everybody in the organization knows this, everybody in the organization admits it. For this season, just talking about this season, what Darius and Donovan do together, the dynamic between both those guys and how they work alongside one another and how they play when they're on the court at the same time is going to determine how far the Cavs can go. Because Evan Mobley is still 21 years old, just in his second year. Jared Allen is not like a huge piece of the offense, even though he's involved heavily. Like, he's not somebody who can go out, create his own offense, not somebody who's going to go out and score 20 on a nightly basis. If this team is going to function at the highest levels and compete against Boston and Milwaukee and Golden State and Phoenix and all those teams, Memphis as well, this year, it's got to be Darius and Donovan together. They've got to be great together. Not great separately, because we have seen that. They've got to be great together, and that's got to make the Cavs great together. We haven't seen enough of that. So I'm watching that dynamic between those two guys, because if that comes together, the Cavs go to a completely different level.
Chris Fedor, Cavs beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com, as always. Great insight. Thanks so much for the time. Appreciate it very much. Thanks, Chris.
You got it, my man. Anytime.
Chris Fedor, make sure you check him out. Great Cavs coverage, cleveland.com and the Plain Dealer. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We will see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.